So if you don't know what this is the Pittman Apartments building. This was the site of the evacuation of the remaining personnel in Vietnam during the fall of Saigon. Kia ora, how you doing? I'm in an empty office space right now in the Vincom building. So I'm going to try to be quiet because I probably shouldn't be here. But yesterday I had the opportunity to go up to the top of that building. That was the building from that photo. If you Google the Pittman Apartments, fall of Saigon, that rooftop there, that little, at the top of the elevator shaft, was the building the helicopter was from. The helicopter was landing on to transport people out to the sea to then transport them to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. So if you're just jumping on, this is some Vietnam War history. When I leave this building, we're gonna talk about some other stuff that has nothing to do with the war, but I wanted to start the tour here. That way I could get this in at least, and I wouldn't have anything jeopardizing that. Oh, that's great. I'm glad I could show it to you. The Vincom building, which I'm standing in now, I'm on the 9th floor, wasn't standing at that time. So the picture came from directly to my left, but some buildings behind this building, the buildings that were here, gone, but the Pittman Apartments are still there. The street down below is called Ly Tu Trung Street now, but at the time it was called Gia Long Street. Which yellow building? They're kind of all yellow. Yeah, so the embassy, both of our embassies were damaged here. The first one was damaged in 1965, and then the second one they built that was finished in 1967 was bombed during the Tet Offensive in 1968, January 31st. So this was the site. So this is actually the Pittman Apartments. This was just an expat / diplomatic, U.S. personnel residence. And this top part here that you see, so that's where, if you Google like Pittman Apartments, fall of Saigon, 1975, you'll see the helicopter on the ladder leading up to the top of that. So that's just what that building is. It's super significant in U.S. history. It wasn't the embassy. That's where a lot of people think it was, but it wasn't. Prior to, people don't know this too, but they didn't attack our escape missions because they knew that the less people we had here, the less chance there would be to defend South Vietnam. So they just wanted us out. So they actually told the Viet Cong, don't attack their escape missions, because they easily could have. They were shelling the airport. The airport was closed, which is why they used helicopters to evacuate people. It's not really a penthouse. It's kind of an older apartment complex, but that's actually the top of the elevator shaft. So it's just like a maintenance. It's, if you know me, I'm from Pittsburgh. It's the same thing that's on top of the Union Trust building. Sometimes they decorate them and make them part of the building, but it's just the top of where the mechanism for the elevator is. Yeah, it wasn't a helipad at all. It was just that roof. So it was called Operation Frequent Wind. And it was a hastily done thing, and we weren't proud of it. I mean, we had lost the war, and we'd spent a ton of money and lost a lot of lives. And, Saigon was falling to the Viet Cong, and we had to leave quickly. So, they made it into a bar restaurant for a while, and hasn't been open in a while. I don't know if it closed during COVID or what happened, but it's not operational anymore. I was able to go to the top yesterday, though. I bribed the security guard down there, right there at that entrance here. It costs about $10 in Vietnam money, but you can go to the top. You just have to sort of find the right security guard that'll accept that. So I'm going to take the elevator down in a second. I just wanted to set the stage for this walk, just to orientate yourself to behind it. This is the Notre Dame Cathedral. I'm going to put my stabilizer on when I go outside. I just didn't want to have it in the building for clandestine reasons. That's the post office. That's the famous post office here in Saigon, the Boudin, the one built by Mary Alfred Fulho. That's the Notre Dame Cathedral. This is Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Yeah, they got everyone out. Yeah, everyone got out. So, busy Saigon. '75. That was 1975. All right, I gotta go. Yeah, it was 1975. Did that double seat work?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Is this going down or are you guys going up?
It's going up.
All right. All right, I heard the maintenance staff in the other part of the building. I got my own elevator. All right, great. Look, everyone, H&M. So I'm gonna plug this in. I'm gonna put my stabilizer on now. So yeah, it was the largest airlift in history. And that's the building right there. So I'm out on the street now. I had to kind of shut up in there because I could hear the maintenance staff in the hallway. And I knew if I kept talking, they would hear me, period. And not only that, they would know I wasn't Vietnamese. So someone would have opened that door in that open space. I knew from last year that some of those spaces in the Vincom Center aren't rented. So you can like kind of go in there clandestinely and get a good look across, because otherwise it's almost impossible to get that perspective for the shot because the Vincom Center is huge. So that picture from 1975, it's technically impossible to recreate it because this building's in the way. So it represents old and new Saigon. Vincom, the corporation, it has several subsidiaries. Vin Homes, there's a bunch of, it's a big time company that has a bunch of stuff going on. So it's a huge corporation. So it makes sense they'd have a presence right here in downtown. But I'm gonna plug in my stabilizer and we'll start the rest of the tour. Sorry for the technical delays, but I have to give you real life stuff, and with that comes some technical challenges sometimes. Oh, yeah, I heard they were developing a car. I heard that. This is my stabilizer. I heard they were. That's cool. Good for them. Well, I think competition's a good thing, you know? So, what is it? There's a monopoly on what? Korea, Japan. Who else? There's other, you know, car companies. It's good. It's a good thing. Thin fast. All right. Sorry about the shakiness. It's just the nature of setting this up. Usually I do this prior to doing the live, but because I had only my phone there for the Pittman building, I had no choice. All right. So just across here, this is like I said, this is the Vincom building here, and then that views the Pittman Apartments, which is right here. So this is Ly Tu Trung Street now. But, of course, it was called Saigon up until 1975. So, all right, let's hit this tour. So here's the rundown, just so you know. We're going to do quickly past the palace, the Gia Long Palace, and then we're going to go down past the Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange. We'll show that. We'll show the Bank of Vietnam, the Saigon Bridge, which was actually built by Gustave Eiffel. We'll talk the Customs House and the Bank of East Asia building, the Banque Française Commerciale, and we'll talk about the first embassy bombing in the U.S. Wrap up with the Rex Hotel and City Hall. So it'll be a good little walk here. So it's not going to take all day, so stick with me if you can. Yeah, they do still call it, like, it's still referred to as Saigon, which is wild, you know. It's kind of funny to think that, but it is. I think it's kind of cool. So now I'm still walking on Ly Tu Trung Street, which used to be called Gia Long Street, and I'm walking towards what was the last residence of Ngo Dinh Diem. So I talked about that before on previous lives, but if you don't know who that is, he was the guy that was in charge up until 1963. He was a staunch Catholic and tyrannical non-communist leader. So not all leaders that are crazy or communist. He was anti-communist, but he was just as crazy. So he silenced a lot of dissent during his regime. He also suppressed a significant portion of the Buddhist population of this country. He banned flying of the Buddhist flag, which resulted in numerous protests. His younger brother, Ngo Dinh Nu, was particularly violent towards the Buddhists, attacking their protests, killing several. And the main event of that part of their regime was the, forgive me, this is a little bit dark, but the self-immolation of the monk Dik Quang Duc, a busy intersection not far from here. So a monk set himself on fire to protest the regime. So VinFast, yeah. And he calls it Saigon because they can't accept the truth. Well, I've heard locals call it Saigon. These idiots doing this. So they have some military arms here. There's a fighter plane, there's a helicopter, there's some stuff here, a couple planes. This is the former Gia Long Palace. So this is what used to be the residence of Nyo Dinh Diem. It was originally built by Mary Alfred Fulhu as a exposition hall for the Cochin China part of the colony. So this was originally built to be an exposition hall, but during its construction they had to reconfigure it to be a residence. The reason that happened is because the other palace, Independence Palace, which at the time was the Norodom Palace, a completely different structure that was downgraded from being the Governor General's residence to lieutenant governors. So they didn't want them living there. It was too grand. They had to move them. They moved them here. So they retrofitted this to be a residence. But like I said, it originally was supposed to be an exposition hall. So this, along with the post office and the customs building and the Palais de Justice, there's several different buildings in Saigon that were the work of Mary Alfred Fulhu. So that's what this is. And in the previous live, I talked about the coup of Nyo Dinh Diem, who was like I said, a tyrannical despot leader. So that happened right here. It's a communist government now, 1975 on. So the building you see there, because I just started in it, you see the glass building beyond the flag there. That was that's the Vincom building that I was just standing in. So there's the H&M logo you can see there on the building. And that is the building that is just across Le Taton Street from the Pittman Apartments. So just so you can orientate yourself, this is the same street. We walk the same street. It's Le Taton Street. Used to be called Gia Long Street. Oh wow, you're in there. You're here as a Marine. That's incredible. Wow. I am always blown away when people jump on here that served, because it's incredible. Like the things you saw must have been, I mean, it's obviously very different now. That's the part that's really cool. I almost wish I had those people here so they could tell me, hey, this was here, this is what used to happen. That part is fascinating to me, those time capsules. So anyway, like I said, this is the last residence of Nyo Dinh Diem. I'm going to walk now. I'm going to do a couple different sites. But so you know, that's the Vincom building, the blue building beyond this palace. And that's the one that's across the street from the Pittman Apartments where we started this live. Okay. Now I'm walking towards the Ben Nhi Creek. This is all part of the port. This is the Ben Thanh district. That means city port. All this is near the water. We're near the Saigon River. We're also near the Ben Nhi Creek. So this is all used to connect this part of the country to the water. So it's very easy. So as I walk this, you'll get a good feel of old and new Saigon. There's some older buildings still in existence, and unfortunately some of them have been torn down. So you see some old and new. But when we get to the water, that's the Saigon, the Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. Oh, you were in Hue. Okay. Yeah, just so you guys know what he's talking about, Bun Hua Hue is a super famous soup you can get a lot of places in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh. but it's from that city, Bon Ba Hue. So that's the city he's speaking of. So that's where he was. So a lot of buildings from this area have been torn down. This one specifically, this was here last year. It was an old Art Deco building right on the corner. A lot of this old Saigon is changing rapidly. Vietnam's developing before our eyes. I try to capture the old buildings as I can because much is changing. I remember last year I pinned this on my map. I pinned it on my map because I wanted to go back and look at it, and it's since been torn down. It was an old Art Deco building. Not to sound stupid, is it safe for Americans to love this? Yeah, you talking Vietnam? Absolutely. Oh yeah. Is it safe? Of course. You got to remember, this country was dominated for 1,000 years. The Chinese were here before the French. Then the French were here. Then the Japanese were here. Then the French were back briefly. Then the Americans were here. The Vietnamese people let bygones be bygones. They don't hold grudges. They're happy to move on with their lives. That's one of the things that's most impressive about this culture. They could give a shit what happened when. They like to move forward. The Ben Thanh market. Remember, Ben Thanh means city port. So now you can see a little bit of the old Vietnam. Look at those balconies. Look at those buildings. Look how old school that is. And there's a lot flying up near the Ben Thanh market too. A lot of new stuff. So it's one of those tourist hubs. It's a very popular market for people to visit, and they're building some high-rise condos near it though. But look at that building. Take a look, because this stuff's changing before our eyes. You see that old school building? Maybe in 10 years it's not there. At the end of this street is the Opera House. It's another French colonial building back from way back when. I believe it was Paul Gardez that built that. We'll walk that street in a second. We'll get to it. I got to show you the stock exchange and a couple other buildings first, but we will get to that street. That's Nguyen Way Street. It has a bunch of stuff on it. We will get there. Here's Saigon Square. Another look back at the old and new together. Oh, so you were just in the smaller places. Okay. Yeah, I imagine that was very stressful. That's probably an understatement. Yeah, I would love to do the countryside too. I mean, I wouldn't know where I was going, unfortunately. I'd probably be best to go with a local. So Saigon's an incredibly easy city to navigate. Even if you aren't from here, you can figure it out really quickly. So it's super fun in that way. It's cracked pavement. This is sort of ubiquitous here. Again, without, with central planning and things like that, sometimes things like this go unfixed. Not to say the U.S. doesn't have sidewalk issues. We do. Smells so good. I love these places. I love these juice places. They're everywhere too. They're all incredible. They make smoothies here like it's nobody's business. I like a scooter. Yeah, I know. I have actually, my scooter got stolen like a year ago and I haven't replaced it. Got stolen right outside of a Panera. No, this city isn't really dirty. It's just, this is Southeast Asia. I mean, it's rainy and it's like humid and, it doesn't have like a dry climate where you have, it just kind of always looks like that, Even places like Singapore and stuff that are super, super clean, they have their moments too where it's just hot and sweltering and sticky. It's kind of the nature of it, unfortunately. I'm just visiting. I've visited Vietnam a couple times though, so I've gotten to know it, but no, I'm just visiting. I'm an ice hockey coach. I coach hockey. There's a guy just taking a nap on his bike. So we're getting closer to the Ben Nhie Creek. This street's very important too. We'll talk about it in a second. This is the street the former embassy to South Vietnam is on. Just a little bit, a couple blocks from here, but we will talk about it in a second. Yeah, I know, I'm in the rainy season too. I must be crazy. I must be nuts visiting right now. Gotta pay attention crossing the street. Just walk slow. So anyway, it kind of gives you an idea of like a city block, a couple city blocks in the field, traffic, etc., etc., etc. Excuse me. Not many mosques here. It's not a lot of Muslims, but there are some. So here's one of them down here in the first district. So the first district's kind of the priciest to you. It's closest to all the main sites. So hotels and stuff are located here, of course, and then rents and stuff are just higher here. The outer districts, of course, are cheaper. That goes without saying. Usually most cities structure that way. If you're in the city for 2 months and spent $5,000, yeah, that's including rent too, isn't it? It's cheap. It's real cheap. But it's not the cheapest. I mean, Laos, Cambodia are less. Vietnam is developing rapidly, so my thought on this place is enjoy it while you can. It may change, in 15, 20 years, it might be different. It might be more like Taipei or, Shanghai or a city like that that's truly a massive city. It could, it could change. You never know. A lot of banks here, though. So a lot changed. It's important to mention. So, like, Hong Kong typically was such a banking capital, and the way the Chinese government has started to control Hong Kong has made corporations leave. A lot of them have come to Vietnam. A lot of corporations have left China and come to Vietnam. The government sort of allows things to just function a little bit easier, and corporations have gotten the hell out of China, Hong Kong and China, really. Sorry, I missed your guys' comments. I apologize. All the security guards were staring at me. They treat Americans excellent. I mean, it's a very welcoming place. It's very, 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 very friendly. Happy to have us here. Very welcoming. So the stock exchange, the HCMC stock exchange, is up here on our right, and they have a bull and bear monument too. Their bull is attacking the bear. So the bear is on its back and the bull is in a position of strength. So it's a cool site in downtown, First District. Oh yeah, that's everywhere here too. Wait till you see You should see Thailand and Laos and Cambodia. It's everywhere. Those are everywhere. So this is the stock exchange building right here with these big pillars. So it's really fancy. And we'll get to a couple more sites. We're going to hit these sites pretty quick here. But guarantee you'll like it. This is old and new. Look at the old school, right? Like this is a street corner next to the stock exchange. Look at this. So that's what makes Vietnam special, is the charm like that. So, but like I said, things change, you know. Money, political power, you can buy properties, develop them. So here's the stock exchange here. And it's a business day, right? It's Monday. And they have a, you know, the U.S. is famous for having that statue that was built as a gift, actually, overnight. That guy put it there. That bull statue that everyone goes and takes a picture with. But this is their version of it. It's a bronze bull and bear for the Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange. It was documented in 1934 as a Chambre de Commerce. So it was set up while it was still a colony. So now, of course, it's, part of a different economy, too. I mean, it was set up during French control. It went through Japanese, American, French again, like I said. So set up many different things. But here's the stock exchange here, which is pretty cool. The question was, embassy was occupied. No, they tore down that. That was our second embassy. That's a great question, by the way. And it was torn down. No, it is not there any longer. The first embassy is there, and we're going to be by it in a couple minutes. So this is the stock exchange here for Ho Chi Minh City. And then there's the bull and the bear. Of course, everyone knows that. Bull market, bear market. People know what that is. So now this bridge here to my right, this blue bridge, originally was built for cars. The entrances on this side used to be ramps that led up to it and turned at a right angle to the bridge. The other side was a straight entrance. This is the Khao Mong, or the Mong Bridge. This one was built by Gustave Eiffel. This was the only one he did in the city. People mistakenly think he did the post office. He did not. We already talked about that. That was Mary Alfred Fulho. He did this bridge. The bear looks so friendly. I know the bear is getting attacked, unfortunately. Yeah, Thelonious, thank you for that. Yeah, I started at the Pittman Apartments on Ly Tu Trung St. I'm basically walking a big rectangle. So I started there. I took a left out of the Vincom building, walked past the Ho Chi Minh City Museum. Now this is the bottom end of the rectangle, and I'm going to walk the long straightaway up Nguyen Hue Street towards Ho Chi Minh City Hall. So yeah, I could see theft being high. So there's the Khao Mong Bridge there. It's actually a really popular spot for proposals here. So it's a really picturesque bridge because it's pedestrian only, so it's a bit quieter. So it's a really popular spot for proposals. This is the Bank of Vietnam here. I'm going to cross the street because I don't want to walk right in front of it, because the guy in that little hut there has an automatic weapon, and I don't want to draw his attention. What were you watching on TV? You talking the war documentary? So here's the Khao Mong. They have a nice little exercise spot next to it too. And like I said, this is the Bank of Vietnam here. I'll turn it around and so you can see it in a second. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry. I thought that's maybe what you meant. I just didn't want to assume. As soon as I get a break in this traffic, I'm going to jump across. Motorbikes I can deal with. The cars are a little bit bigger, so I got to watch. Yeah, I'll go right here. This is perfect right here. Right here. There you go. Just seamless. Just froggered that like it's nobody's business. So here's the Gong Bridge, which is pretty cool. It's pretty neat, actually, I think. How is the Maldives? How was that? That's a small island, right? So this, like I said, used to have a pass. This used to be for cars. So this was like the cars, like the cars would come up here. This was a longer approach to it. Cars would drive up and then go across the bridge. They've since closed that and they reconfigured the entrance where it's just steps. But this used to actually be for vehicles. So like I said, this is a super popular spot for proposals. It's also just a pretty bridge, you know, over the Ben Yi Creek. So get a little bit look at the water. This flows into the Saigon River. There's a lot of waterways around here, so it's kind of tough to kind of get them straight until you walk the city and you experience a little bit. But I'm going to walk in front of that in a second. That's the Bank of Vietnam there. And then, you know, the stock exchange where we just came from is right there. So you can kind of see where we are. My girlfriend actually wants to go to the Maldives. Oh wow, so just jumping back in the comments, so you actually saw the last helicopter leave live. Wow, that is, oh man. That is just some history. I mean, I was born in 1985, so I like envy the fact that people got to experience that and understand that. Like, I was alive during 9/11, which now you say that to kids and they think you're, you know, a dinosaur. That doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was 22 years. Thousand Islands, wow, very cool. So there's your stock exchange, like I said, and then, you know, just down from it is the Bank of Vietnam, and I'm walking on the Khao Mong. This was built by Gustave Eiffel. Maybe he ran his hand across this railing here, so the same guy that built the Eiffel Tower. You never know, right? He may have stood here and appreciated his you know, accomplishment. Walking in the same footsteps as some architectural greats, some heavy hitters, really. Yeah, the guy in that hut right there, that like dark beige, dark brown hut, has an automatic weapon. And I spoke to him yesterday when he helped me figure something out. But it's a little frightening. It's not like it's like put away. He's like holding it. And so it's like, you know, on his hip. A little freaky, to be honest with you. So, anyway. So, as I walk now this way, I start to see more sights. of kind of the colony, the old part of the colony. So there's some banking interests here that we'll talk about in a second that, again, were basically relative to people trying to get rich. You know, there was money to be made in these places, and they thought that the resources didn't necessarily belong to the locals. The Europeans wanted them. So for obvious reasons, I'm not going to point the camera directly across the street at the Bank of Vietnam, because it's a little freaky. But anyway, the building that looks very similar to it is the HSBC building. I'll see the engravings here in a second. That actually used to be like a public works building when it was a colony. It still has some French writing on it, and I'll show that in a second. But what's cool about older banks is they'll engrave their initials in the iron that usually protects the windows. It's a very old school thing to do. Nobody really does that anymore. So it's a Monday now. It's a business day. Yesterday it was far less busy. So you can see this HSBC right on the windows. If you focus, you can see it. I bet he won't shoot. I'd rather not engage with someone holding a weapon and when I don't speak their language, to be honest. So I hear you there, but still freaky. Anyway, coming up on a very important street. So if you're near a computer, I want you to Google the bombing of the United States Embassy to South Vietnam. So Google that. If you're on your phone, you can't do it. That's okay. You can look at it later. But if you're near a computer, grab it and Google that. 1965 bombing. Google Barbara Robbins. So we're going to be passing the old embassy to South Vietnam, the old U.S. embassy. So that's the HSBC building there. And I'm going to cross the street in a second. So you can see it says a little bit of, it has some old French writing in it too, but it says entreprise. Hi. So I want you to, if you've Googled that, great. If not, that's fine. We'll take a couple more seconds before I get to where I want you to see. So this right here too, this is a Bank of East Asia building, former Bank of East Asia building. I'll show you the engravings when I get a better shot at it, but that's a Hong Kong-based bank that is, again, had interest in the colony, the people of Hong Kong, and certainly the government, the colonial government, had interest here too. Again, it was all just a matter of how much wealth could you extract from a colony. So you see here the BEA engraving over the door. That stands for Bank of East Asia. Yeah, the public workout gear is great. It's very, very common in Southeast Asia too. They'll have that in Hong Kong, Singapore, a lot of places where a lot of, who uses it actually is like elderly people. So older people use it. So it's kind of good for them. They can come out and be active, and it's nothing weight-wise. But anyway, so this building right here, and keep in mind it was much quieter yesterday. But this building right here, in blue, this was the former embassy to South Vietnam by the U.S. So we set up a consulate here in the late 1900s. And then, rolling that into 1950, we set up an embassy to South Vietnam, recognizing Bao Dai, the emperor of the Nguyen dynasty, as their leader. This in 1965, so that's after the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We started sending troops. We started being more and more involved here. We'd bombed some North Vietnam places, near Hanoi. We were involved in the area. In 1965, a Viet Cong car pulled up here, right where my finger is. The guard of the embassy started to tell it to keep driving. Another Viet Cong car pulled up alongside it, started shooting at the guard, and then the original car detonated some pounds of plastic explosives. Barbara Robbins was standing near the window. She was killed in the blast, as well as another American. And then, so 19 Vietnamese and 1 Filipino actually died in the bombing as well. And there was almost 200 people were injured. So if you have that image up, you can see it and match it up with the current building. So it's eerily similar, but you'll see gurneys and police cars and stuff happen that were here. So it's kind of crazy. But it's some dark history of that time period. So right to my right here, like I said, this is the embassy, the former U.S. Embassy to South Vietnam. When I cross the street, you'll see a different look at it as well. So right where that person is right there on the motorbike is where the explosion went off. So across the street, I'm going to talk about another bank before I walk Win Way Street. Even though this is District 1 and it's expensive, it's still one of my favorite areas. So another Colonial building here across from us. This is the Banque Française Commerciale. So this was originally set up as a completely different financial institution, but they were a little late to the game. They got there late. Set up in the 1920s. The colony was kind of already mature at that point. A lot of the money to be made had already been made. Sure, there was things set up then, but the directors of this bank had to retire kind of in disgrace because this bank suffered some heavy losses due to some poor investments. So it was after that original establishment, it was the, I think, Banque Française de la, something with a C. But when they changed it to Banque Française Commerciale, which is here where you can see the initials, you see the BFC above the door. That's when, they kept the same acronym basically, so they didn't have to change the acronym. So anyway, another example of colonial exploitation. I think they added that third roof. This used to have a little dome on it, so it looked really French. So if you Google Banque Française Commerciale Saigon, you'll see the old building. It had a little one of those dome things. It looked super French. They took it off and added that extra floor. Marine 13, yeah. Oh, you were in boot camp. Wow. Shit. Yeah, the Gulf of Tonkin incident was what allowed LBJ to use traditional military power, force, without a formal declaration of war. So I'm going to walk a different direction now. So I encourage you, anybody on, please Google 1965 bombing of U.S. Embassy to South Vietnam. Pull that image up. You'll see gurneys and stuff in this street. Does anyone have that image up? I'm going to walk towards the customs house in a second, so I just need to know one of you have it up. Okay, you guys have seen it. Yeah, so Google 1965 U.S. Embassy to South Vietnam bombing. Or just straight 1965 Saigon U.S. Embassy bombing. That'll get it. I just want any of the, I know some of the people here have seen it, like some of our well-versed people in Vietnam. I just want some of the people maybe to experience it that hadn't seen it or that aren't aware of it. So, and then I'll move on. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so you got it. The one shot is from over where I was looking this way at me. The other shot is here. So you see the barricades and the gurneys. They were all set up here. Like I said, almost 200 people were injured. There was 22 people killed. So an embassy bombing is a big deal, like period. I don't care if no one was dead. If an embassy gets bombed, they are sending a message. That is a planned thing. That's not something you just wake up and decide, oh, I'm going to bomb the embassy today. That's a big deal. So that is a serious act. But you got to keep in mind, they didn't want us here. They wanted us to stop meddling in their business. They saw us as American imperialists. The perspective on it, you have to come to this country to understand both sides of it. You don't want to go, oh, hey, who's right, who's wrong. You just want to try to collect all the information and see how they saw it. So it's just important to notice that. But also what I'm saying is it's incredibly safe for Americans to come here. This is all in the past. This is all, yesterday's news. They're moving on with their lives. Carter, you just jumped on. Not much. We just talked to a few Vietnamese. We started with the Pittman Apartments. So we're talking the last mission, or Operation Frequent Wind, the helicopter evacuation. It was the largest helicopter evacuation ever. Then we walked some old Saigon, did the Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange. We did the Bank of Vietnam and Bank of East Asia, HSBC building, and now we're doing the U.S. Embassy to South Vietnam. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they were just like this country was dominated for 1,000 years. The Chinese were here forever, and then the French were here too. I mean, they were sick of them. They fought hard to get the French out. It was just like enough's enough. That's kind of how they felt. So anyway, this bank too. This is just another example of Colonial Bank, BFC. But they were late to the party. All right, so I'm walking to the Customs House now. This is another Phu He building. I know I talk about him all the time, but the former building on that site was Maison Wang Tai. So the Wang Tai house, he was, that was the monopoly over the opium trade in Saigon. So the colonial authorities broke that up in 1881, took over the building, then decided the building wasn't big enough, so they had to build their own. So they hired Mr. Phu He, or Monsieur Phu He, as I should say, to build them another customs house, which they did, and that's this building that sits here today. I think it was finished in 1887. The motifs on the building separating the windows are poppy seeds. They're opium. So it's poppy leaves and seeds. So it's a major source of revenue for the colony. So it's a very important building, and it still serves as a customs house today. Are there any Vietnam War souvenirs? There's a chain of coffee shops called Gong Cafe, and it has relics of the war, but it's more Vietnamese. There are stores that sell the propaganda posters, though, which are kind of cool, but that's more related to the current government. There's not a lot of U.S. stuff here, not that I've seen. So take a look again, right? The leaves, the flowers between the windows are poppies. So it's the poppy leaves. That's interesting. So all their existence was very local. That makes sense. I mean, that's maybe why they had so much pride in their region, is they weren't looking to travel. They just wanted a subsistence to have at home, food to eat, a shelter, and that was it. So this street's, just to forewarn you, this next street we're going to be on is really busy. So it's going to be a little loud, but I'll walk it nonetheless. Actually, you know what? I might just skip it because I can't even talk during it. I'm just going to show you the end of the street so you can see landmark 81, and then I'm going to move on because the rest of it's just ridiculous. Landmark 81 is the tallest building you can see off in the distance. It's one of the new developments here in Ho Chi Minh. And then there's some famous hotels along here too, along the riverside. It's the Saigon River. The Hotel Majestic's a famous one. There's a couple other ones that are really posh. So, actually today it's pretty pleasant. It's not bad at all today. So we kind of got lucky. There was some rain earlier, it kept the day cool. So I haven't been baked to smithereens like other days in Southeast Asia. Some days are really punishing. Today's been all right. But this is the customs house. Again, it was built as the Hotel de Douane. Douane meaning customs. So now I'm on Nguyen Hue Street. Hotel Majestic's just down the street. So we're gonna walk up here. We'll talk about the Rex Hotel, 5 o'clock Follies, finish up at the City Hall building. So we're almost done. I know it's late for some of you guys, so stick around, we're almost done. Yeah, no red light. The red lights, if you see one, the red lights are more of a suggestion anyway. So, ex-Marine, can you, so they were forced to fight. Okay. They were forced to fight. Interesting. So, hey, thanks for the share, Raven. Appreciate that. So you can see off in the distance, you see the next building you can see in front of you, way off in the distance, that's the City Hall building. It was originally built as the People's Council building. So that was a Paul Gardez building built 1902 to 1907. So that's when that was constructed. And when you get up there, you'll see it's a clear example of like French colonial architecture. This street actually used to have cars running through it too. It was only recently closed and made pedestrian. So a lot of the older Saigonese people hate it because it kind of ruined what was like a kind of like a better street. So the thing about open spaces is they're not bad, but when things are demolished to make them, it's not always a good thing. So the real estate market around here has really changed, and now it's more like brands and corporations and hotels. And the old schoolness of this street is kind of largely gone. You notice there's no street food here. Big difference than other streets. So it doesn't really feel like Saigon, and I think that's why people don't like it as much, is because it doesn't really represent the city. This is Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, but don't be turned off by this because the rest of the city has way more culture. So there's no street food here. There's no street side selling. So, all right, the Rex Hotel, which is coming up. The Rex Hotel was originally built by a French businessman to be a car dealership. He had Citroën and some other European cars. Then in the 50s, they started converting it actually to a hotel. So it took them about 20 years. But when we first sent troops here in 1961, we first started getting involved. They billeted them at the Rex while they were building tents at Tan Son Nhat Airport for them to live in. So they came from Fort Bragg. Those troops were from Fort Bragg and Fort Lewis. That's in Fort Bragg's North Carolina, and Fort Lewis is in Tacoma, Washington. So there's about 400 of them. They gave them a Thanksgiving dinner, even though it was a few weeks late. They gave them a Thanksgiving dinner on the roof of the Rex. But the Rex is famous because it had the media broadcast by Barry Zorthian. So that was like a long-running media broadcast, basically educating people on the state of things here in Vietnam. And the reason why it was called the 5 o'clock follies is because it was spoken about like we were doing positive things here, and it wasn't going well here at all. And that's why it ended up being kind of seen as satirical, because what the government was telling us what was happening wasn't true at all. So Barry Zorthian, he lived actually till he was like in his 90s. I think he just died in 2010. So he was alive for a long time, like even after the war. The first time I read this quote, I couldn't stop laughing. He basically said, typically with the U.S. government, when they say something, it's true until proven otherwise. Because when they speak about the Vietnam War, it's false until proven true. So we were trying to manage public expectation and public opinion of the war, despite things just not going well. So that's no secret. People know that. They know that this was a very difficult assignment, and it didn't succeed. You know, we started at the Pittman Apartments. The last mission we had to evacuate people quickly. As the Viet Cong were getting closer and closer to the Independence Palace. So ex-Marine, hey, good night, man. I'm almost done with this, so I appreciate you sticking around. I'm sorry for the late time. It's one of those things. It's now or never, you know what I mean? Like I did another one earlier today. So the timing's awkward, of course, but I appreciate you commenting as much as you did. I thank you for your contribution, and thank you for serving. I appreciate that a ton. So I appreciate you, like I said, just jumping in and commenting. I know that's probably not easy for you, maybe, and I don't want to stir up any bad memories or anything like that. But I try to showcase people many things in history. If just hopefully people can learn from a little bit. Hello. Anyway. So here's the Rex up here on the left. And the garden, the rooftop bar, was a popular hangout for all media personnel. You know, it's no secret, writers and people like that, intellectuals, they like to sit around and drink a beverage. Doesn't matter if it's coffee, wine, beer, whiskey. They need a place to hang out and talk, because then they'll go write and discuss things. So that was the Rex, at least for the U.S. side. And that's where the 5 o'clock follies was broadcast from. But anyway, the City Hall building doesn't get enough credit. Most people talk about the post office and, the Palais de Justice and stuff, and the Fool Hill buildings. Those were all built earlier on in the colony. This was built a little bit later, in the 1900s, but still, it has a huge impact here too. I think it's one of the better ones. I think a lot of them are great, but this one, I think the fact that you can walk up close to it makes it special, because some of them, they're kind of back off the street, and they're now government buildings, so you can't get right up on them. So I think in that way it kind of sucks, but either way, it works. So there's the Rex right there. Good shot of it. Oh, really? You stayed at the Rex? Get out of here. No way. When? Come on, that's incredible. I love hearing that. That's awesome. And they got good, and they didn't skimp on the beds either. That's the best part. Some of the beds in Asia are a little firm. They're not really Western beds by our standards. In March you did. Get out of here. Come on, that's incredible. Shit. So they got bad at what? You think it's better than a Serta? I wonder if they got their beds on Amazon. It's like, excuse me, can I have 275 beds? Delivered 2-day shipping, right? Oh, that's cool. See, all the hotels down here, you know what, though? That makes sense because all the hotels down here are really fancy. And if one was crap, nobody would take it. They almost have to be to compete. So, all right, this is the end. I'm wrapping this up here. Here's the Ho Chi Minh Monument. And then behind it is City Hall. So, Ho Chi Minh is the father of the country. They still refer to him as our president. He passed away in 1969. He's interred in a mausoleum in Hanoi that you can still visit. Even as a non-Vietnamese, you can still visit it, which is, you know, a little different in terms of memorials. We don't really do that in the West, but, you know, Lenin's tomb, Mao Zedong has a mausoleum, Ho Chi Minh has a mausoleum. So it's a little bit different, but it is what it is. That's what happened. Every year they send his body to Russia for maintenance because it's kind of like a Soviet thing to do that. So I've been to Hanoi twice, and unfortunately both times his body was in Russia, but they usually send him about now. So I'd like to see it one day just to see that. The one time I was in Beijing, unfortunately I wasn't able to see Mao Zedong's body either, so I'm looking forward to one day seeing that because I think it would be mind-blowing to say the least. Very old school way of preserving someone. Yeah, isn't that nuts? 1969 he died. He's been in a tomb ever since. That's a lot of preservation. I think when they send him to Russia, they do probably some preservation techniques, probably makeup, things like that. But the tomb's airtight. It's the same as Lenin's tomb. So it's an airtight tomb, obviously, because air, you know, has carbon in it, and it you know, things break down. But you'd say the Rex would be the best hotel in 2010, but now there's something better. No shit. Well, all right, guys. You guys hung with me forever. We started this one at the Pittman Apartments. If you were on since then, I applaud you. You're a diehard. Pittman Apartments, taking it all the way back to the end of the Vietnam War. Talked a little Colonial stuff. You know, not bad. Little present financial, little past financial. Stock Exchange, Bull and Bear, Gustav Eiffel. This city's a gorgeous city. You got to get to it. You have to see Vietnam. You have the confluence of so many different things. You got Asian culture, French, American. There's a blend of so many things here. You have to see it. You have to see this place. So I encourage everyone, if possible, to visit it because it doesn't disappoint. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to do some more lives tomorrow. Tomorrow is my last day here. I fly to Taipei at like 7:55 tomorrow night. And I'll be there just after midnight. And I'll be in Taiwan on Wednesday. So I'll do some Chiang Kai-shek stuff. We'll talk a little Sino-Soviet split, a little Chinese civil war between Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. So we'll talk a little bit of that too. So we'll do a little Chinese history then. But in the meantime, guys, take care. Have a great night. It's the middle of the night in the East Coast, so if you're still up, I apologize. Just tell your boss you got sick or something, or, you know, make up some excuse why you need to sleep in. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again, ex-Marine. I know you signed off, but thanks, buddy. Appreciate your contributions. Medusa, Rozzy was on at the start of this one. We have Benjamin 88 was at the start of this one. So some of the people I see all the time in these, I appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot. Thelonious, thank you for your comments throughout. You guys don't understand how much that helps. It helps the video stay alive in the algorithm and helps more people see it. So thank you so much. All right, I gotta go, guys. You guys take care. All right, I gotta get some food. I'm starving. Mr. Blair, thank you. Later, guys. Thelonious, take care, my man. All right, see you guys later. Thank you.